I think Kate is joining us. Or, sorry, Kathleen is joining us, but I don't know.
Yeah, just in time, apparently.
Yes, yes. So I would like to call the Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee to order at 6 o'clock. Myself, Councilor DeSimone, and Vice President Jackson are the three committee members. I have three ordinances that I'd like to take out of committee so that we can discuss them from full council. We did do some of the reading, as you recall, last week. We can waive some of them. There are a few amendments that I'd like to make because we did discover some typos through the readings. And actually, one of them, Councilor DeSimone, I wasn't able to locate that. There was one that said 50. It said the word 50, but it was like 100. And then I just tried to look at this and I couldn't locate it. So
Page 34.
Okay.
In the middle of the page under paragraph M. I'm on it. I happened to open right to it because that's right about where I left off.
Okay.
Page 34, last line of paragraph M.
Okay. Okay. So when we get there, one of us, if we don't mind making the amendment, we'll clean that up. And then there's one other area. Thank you for showing me that. So I'm going to kind of.
What is it supposed to be, please, Diana? Is it in fact 50 or 100? Okay, thank you.
Yes. So I'll start with the first, from the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve a change in parking ordinance 10-5 for the city of Attleboro to be amended as follows. 10-5.2A prohibited on certain streets. Delete Riverbank Road westerly side from 289 feet County Street or 132 feet northerly. 10-5.3 time limit on designated places. Delete 10-5.3 Riverbank Road from County Street to 130 feet northerly. And insert 10-5.3 Riverbank Road southerly, 40 feet from easterly from River Street to County Street.
From Cliff Street.
Oh, I'm sorry, from Cliff Street to County Street.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Jackson introduced this new business. I think it does make sense and it's looking really good over there. It's
It really does.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's getting cleaned up and just, so this is just something that the businesses over there felt like would make sense. And I don't know, Councilor Jackson, do you want to speak a little bit to it?
No, I did. I think I did enough last week.
Perfect.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. They've done a great job.
Oh my gosh, it's looking amazing.
Yes.
So if there's no other comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
That motion will go to full council. From the docket of May 5th, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve the following amendments to section 12-2 through 12-5 of the revised ordinance of the city of Attleboro for fees charged by the Board of Recreation Commissioners and the Department of Parks and Forestry.
Second.
Thank you. So this is one that I did read into full council, and I do have one area that I'd like to make an amendment on. As you recall, this stated that it would be effective, just want to look at the date, I believe it's January 2021, January 2nd, 2021. However, later on in the ordinance, it says it will be effective immediately upon passage. So I'd like to delete that. That is in, it's number 8 in the ordinance, and then it's like 4 pages past number 8, and it's at the top of the page, right before the number 9. So I'd just like to delete, this ordinance shall be effective immediately upon passage.
Second.
Thank you. Again, this is just looks like it was kind of left over, and I think it makes sense to, it contradicts, so we have to kind of take one or the other. So I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes, and so that will be deleted from the ordinance. And now I guess we have to vote on the ordinance as a whole to just bring to the full council for discussion. and I think that it does make sense to potentially have the discussion with the full council. But if anybody has any comments, I'm open to hearing. Okay, so to bring this whole motion to the full council, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay. From the docket of April 21st, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendments for ordinance changes and to increase fees charged by the water department. The following amendments to section 16-10 through 16-14 of the revised ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. This, we covered, thank you, Council Vice President Jackson, you did read this into the record last week. This is related to fee structures and potential changes that will be made. And again, I think it does seem to make sense to bring it before the full council to have a discussion. So I'm willing to bring it out of committee and have that discussion if my committee members are agreeable to that. So I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. And then the last motion is from the docket of April 21st, 2020. I entertain a motion to approve the proposed ordinance changes to increase fees charged by the wastewater department section 16-15, building, sewers, and connections as follows.
Second.
Thank you. I would like to ask for an amendment on section M, where it states it has the number 100, but the word 50. So I'd just like to change the word 50 to be 100.
Second.
Okay. Again, it was kind of a little bit of a blessing that we did read this into the record because we caught a few of these typos. So I think that this is just clearly kind of makes sense to make this change. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion passes. And so then if we want to bring this out of committee, we could discuss it in the full council. So I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So those are four ordinance changes, and I just wanted to let you know, I think that there's going to be a few more things coming again into ordinance. It's kind of been a busy committee for the past few years. So we'll look forward to taking those on as they come. But this is something that, we had the public hearings, we kept them open for some time to get some feedback, and so it just kind of makes sense now to bring it before the council. So I appreciate that. So if there's any other comments, is there anything?
Diana, Councilor, may I? You've seen, maybe you haven't seen the letter from the solicitor regarding the reading of the proposed ordinances. Not the requirement that, that they are not required to be read in their entirety. Did you see that email?
Yeah.
Okay. Having said that, and I actually agree with that, I'm wondering if going forward, we might not want to propose or formulate some kind of template for proposed ordinance changes that requires the submitter to provide us with a summary, to list the areas that are changed, to somehow formalize the procedure where it's on the proposer to bring to our attention in good faith all the proposed changes, and perhaps even an explanation, although I guess they explain it in their letter. But if we could formalize the process, Councilor Holmes, is what I'm proposing.
I love that idea. I think that that's great because it would have been nice to have kind of even the fees like back to back. This is what it was, this is what it was. And then even kind of getting back the history, especially for the zoo fees, like maybe even going back a few times where to kind of see what the pattern has been looking like. But I definitely think that I'm open to that and can kind of request when that does come down, ask if there can be some clarification on what exactly is being changed. Because even though we read this, there was really so few words, even though they said delete this whole section. Sometimes it was just like one, like from dusk till dawn, and then sometimes it would say 6 p.m. to 9. Like it was just only two little changes. It really wasn't a whole ordinance change, even though it said delete section. So I think if they can highlight exactly what they're specifically trying to target, it would be more helpful to to really zone in on that, instead of like looking at 50 pages and kind of saying, well, where,
Right.
what am I
Right.
trying to determine what's different here? So
Right.
I think that's great.
With your permission, I can try to explore some possible templates. And we also might want to somewhere, and I guess this should go without saying, that it's, even if it's not being read fully into the record, it is certain every counselor's responsibility to read the entire document, to catch errors like this, and to also perhaps to catch things that were accidentally omitted from the summary as well. So it's still prudent to read the whole thing, but that each counselor would do so on his or her, time, if you will.
I think that that's very, I think that that's great. I'm supportive
Okay.
of it.
I'll put something together and get it back to you and Vice President Jackson at a future meeting, subcommittee meeting.
That sounds good. I think one of the things that's going to be coming out is from the Economic Development Director, and it's to open up the city to getting more grants. So I think I don't know if it's going to be it's just an add to the ordinance, not necessarily a delete, but this could potentially be our pilot for it. Let's
Okay.
see what it is. And I'm
All
open.
right. Thank you.
Of course. So any other comments?
No.
All right. So I will call for an adjournment at 11. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. See
We'll
you.
see you in a little bit.
especially said if you took another pill, you could.
Todd, can you hear me?
He's probably eating his supper.
I got you, Peter. I can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Got you. Bye.
Sarah, you got a
Up. P.
Hi, Steve.
Good evening, everybody. I call this meeting, regular meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 7 p.m. Mr. Withers, would you kindly take a roll call for attendance? I think I see everybody, but just to confirm, we should do that.
Mr. Blair. Mr. Blair.
Here. Here.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes, here.
Mr. Conti.
Here.
Waterman.
Here.
Vice President Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Delissio.
Present.
Mr. Cobus.
Present.
Ms. Dolan.
Here.
Ms. Reynolds.
Here.
Ms. Holmes.
Present.
President Cooper.
Here. Thank you. We're all here.
Yep.
We're all here. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 3rd, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll require a roll call vote and we'll begin with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yeah.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 3rd, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Oops, sorry.
Ms.
Yes,
Holmes, President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. And at this time, we'll move on to the public hearings. Just for everyone's information, we're going to take them slightly out of order from the agenda. We're going to do the housing development incentive program first, followed by general government budget, water budget, wastewater budget. That will be the order. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice? The first
Yes,
public.
the first public hearing is relative to the adoption of the Downtown Attleboro Housing Development Zone and Housing Development Zone Plan under the Massachusetts Housing Development Incentive Program.
Thank you. And I believe that at AACS is Catherine Farrick and Gary Arasian to walk us through the presentation that was sent to everyone.
Hello all, this is Catherine Farrick reporting from AACS, so hopefully I can get a handle of this technology for you. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the presentation that we have for you. Hold on one moment. All right, does that look good to everybody? You can see this?
yes.
We can.
Excellent. All right, so this is one of the many development finance tools that we can use to try to encourage the redevelopment of some of the buildings in our downtown that either they're vacant or underused. Maybe there's some residual contamination issues from prior industrial use. Maybe they just need a little bit of love and care to bring them up to a good standard to get that extra investment and those higher property values out of these properties. So the Housing Development Incentive Program is, let's see, I cannot do this. Where is it?
Oh, the scroll? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do it easily. All right, well, I can't. It's a down? Page down. Page down, okay. Anyway, it's set up under Massachusetts general law in 40V. Only gateway cities are able to use this tool, and many, many other gateway cities already have it in their development finance portfolio. But it's really useful, like I said, expanding the diversity of housing stock, supporting economic development, and promoting neighborhood stabilization. There are two different elements to this. There's a state level and there's a local level. The local option real estate tax exemption is very similar to a tool that we already have in our arsenal called TIF, tax increment financing. That piece is more on the commercial side. It has a job creation requirement, whereas here with HDIP, it's on the market rate multifamily housing side, and there is no job creation requirement. This is a result of the administration seeing a need for an increase in market rate housing, that there's a shortage within this region generally, and allowing us to have access to this tool to try to encourage developers to build more. The state tax credits for qualified project expenditures, those go up through DHCD, and it's a separate process. But the two elements work in tandem with one another, because the state will certify the projects after we prove that there's local interest in them. It's not working with page down either. So we had 4 goals that we've identified for this program. The first is to increase the inventory of housing available in downtown Attleboro. We've really seen a growth in the rental population in Attleboro in the last 10 years. We expect that trend to continue as the housing prices in the larger cities to our north and south continue to increase. We also want to improve the quality of housing within our downtown district. Add some more options to downtown residents, and hopefully some more high value properties as well. To stabilize vacant and underused buildings, we have a lot of those here in Attleboro just because of the legacy of the jewelry manufacturing industry. We also have some mixed use structures that could certainly support the addition of housing in our downtown. Finally, to foster a vibrant, walkable downtown community. New residents, and particularly new residents within these commuter designated market rate housing projects, they're going to have disposable income they can use to support a diversity of businesses within our downtown as well. So this is how the local option works. Like I said, it's very, very similar to the existing TIF tool that we have. The taxes on the original property valuation are set at a baseline that's established once the tax increment exemption agreement is negotiated and put into effect. There's going to be some property value growth, we assume, over the years, just from general market conditions. But there will also be some large investment undertaken by a given developer that will increase the value of the property. And this area right here, this light gray area, we can exempt some percentage of that added property value at the local level. It can be 10%, it can be 100%. We're given a little bit of flexibility in that. It is going to be negotiated by our existing Economic Development Incentive Board, which is the body that already reviews items like TIF anyway. And it will be ratified by the council and sent up to the state so that they see that, yes, we're supportive of this project. On the state side, I just wanted to include this for your reference so you're aware of it. There's an annual cap of 10 million in tax credits under usual circumstances. You never know these days what's going to happen at the state level. But certified projects within gateway city housing development zones, which is what we're proposing here, can be eligible for tax credits of up to $2 million apiece. So that's a much larger incentive than anything we can offer at the local level, potentially. Now, this map is an older version. There's an updated one in that very, very long document that I sent along to you all in your packets tonight. But roughly, these are a smoothed out version of the boundaries of the downtown Attleboro housing development zone. You'll see that it includes some areas that are in immediate need of redevelopment. And I'm going to just circle this area, like the heart of our downtown, which has a lot of these underutilized or vacant structures. There are other areas that we see as potential for future growth. Areas like over here. This is a long-lived program. So if in 15 years or so, there's a new building that becomes vacant over here, we can use the tax credits from this program to help encourage the redevelopment of that into market rate housing, if that's still a need within the city. It's all a matter of foresight and vision, just to determine where these tax credits can best be used. I'm going to turn it over to the planning director, Gary Eurasian, who's also here with me at ACS Central. He's going to discuss why the boundaries were selected and some of the rationale behind that.
Hi, councilors. Gary Eurasian here, City's Director of Planning and Development, speaking in favor of the HDIP zone. Nice to be back. Nice to see most of you on the screen. Hopefully soon enough, we'll be able to have these sessions in live at the Municipal Council chambers. So working off the goals that Catherine spoke about a few minutes ago, we built the rationale for identifying the parameters, if you may, of the HDIP zone. And as you look on the map, you'll notice that it kind of builds off the central business zoning district and the transit-oriented development district. So working off the goals, working off the purpose of those two zoning districts, we came up with the rationale of why selecting the boundaries, or how do we encapsulate those goals in an area that would then manifest additional housing density, additional housing intensity. So as you see, the area contains much of the city's older housing stock. It affords an opportunity for massing of higher density in and around the downtown in the TOD site. You'll see that it's proximity to the downtown commuter rail station. It's proximity to downtown services and amenities. There's an opportunity to revitalize underutilized mill buildings and mixed-use structures. An opportunity to upgrade the aging multifamily housing stock of the city. And one other item that I'm going to speak about in a second, it's also going to create more housing choices for residents and from people outside of Attleboro. So one of the steps that we're also going to be talking about in, I guess, down the line, once should the council, hopefully you'll approve this HDIP plan. Ultimately, we're going to have to come back to the council because we're going to come back for a rezoning. And often there are times we do on-ground rezonings, modifying an existing zoning district, for example, something in the GRA zone or the general business zone. In other instances, we've created whole new zoning districts, i.e. the TOD zone a few years ago. There are other concepts that the council is aware of too, and that's called an overlay district. So we only have one right now in the city, an overlay district. That's, as you know, the Water Resource Protection District, overlay district. So in forming the zone, if you may, of the HDIP, it consists, as you can imagine, of several zoning districts already. A few of them are General Residence A, the Central Business Zoning District, TOD. There are also pockets of industrial and pockets of general business in this area. So rather than tinkering and amending all of those zoning districts to help manifest those goals that Catherine spoke about earlier, and although I'm often a proponent of on-the-ground zoning, I think this opportunity lends itself perfectly to develop an overlay district. So ultimately, as we walk down that path, there'd be a map developed that you see in front of you that's in red. We'll, of course, work with the city council, but one of the next steps into the project would be developing an overlay district for greater housing development to help manifest the goals that Catherine spoke about earlier.
I lost you.
Gary, Catherine, were you trying to show us something? Because we're seeing the screen move, but we're not hearing you.
I believe they're muted.
Am I muted still?
There you go.
You're unmuted now.
Okay, excellent. What I was showing you was, this is the Housing Development Zone and Plan document that I sent a link to because it's a very large document. But I wanted to show you Gary's zoning map so that you could see it right in front of you. These are all the zoning districts that are comprised within this HD zone,
Yep.
as is. And the overlay district will,
Sure. So with this map on the screen, as you can see, the central business, again, transit-oriented development, general residence A, you've got pockets of industrial, you've got pockets of general business. So rather than, again, as I said it earlier, and I'm sorry if I was muted, my apologies, I didn't know that I was muted. So rather than doing an underground zoning and modifying or proposing to amend all those zoning districts, I thought the best way to proceed with this, and I had conversations with Catherine, also with Stephanie Davies, the senior land use plan, and we concluded that the best way to move forward with this would be to create an overlay district where that would supersede supersede, if you chose to participate in the HDIP zone, additional tools for housing development that would apply to, for example, the GRA zone in this HDIP zone, but would not apply to a GRA zone, for example, outside the HDIP zone.
Excuse me, Gary.
Yes?
Excuse me. This is Kate. I just want to double check. Are we on page 22?
of the
No,
report?
we're in the exhibits. It's under Exhibit D and it's item D under that.
Okay, because it's showing up on, yes.
73,
Yeah, Council, it's toward the back, the very back of the plan.
page 73.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So I will just wrap this up by, I'm going to just scroll through this document just to show you its length. This is a very in-depth document that the state requires you to put together, including all of these maps that Gary worked on for me, and I really appreciate it. A list of all the parcels in the district. And there is market data and research that demonstrates the need for housing. For example, our vacancy rate among rentals is about 5%. A comfortable rate is 6 to 7%. So you see that there is a need for the housing. And you see, these are maps on the flip side of what we hope to see in the future developed. And, some extra information saying, yes, we have the infrastructure capacity to support this new housing. Some of these items were required. Some of them are just illustrative of the need and the opportunity that we see here in Attleboro. But, this document here is what you're voting on today. The presentation is kind of a very condensed version of that, but we're happy to take any questions that you have on this, because I think that it's an interesting program and it's a very important program to have in your toolbox. And I know that there will definitely be some questions on this, and we're happy to answer.
Councils, I'll also offer, once the hearing, if you were to close it or even continue it, if you want Catherine and I to attend, say, a committee meeting, so we could just answer questions, because I know it's a large document. And I know once you refer it to committee, you'll have more opportunity to read it and really get into the optics and forensics of the document. And of course, we're willing to come to any committee meeting that you might invite us to, so we can answer more questions at that time.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. Before I recognize Council Kobus, I certain he'd welcome that. It's in his committee to come before his committee to answer any questions. But one of the things I think would be helpful to me, Richard and I are on committee, so we've had some insight into the preparation of this document and presentation. But I think it would be helpful to understand how the owners in that district are going to know that this is available, how a little deeper on how it affects the current zoning. I heard you and I get it, but maybe the public doesn't, right? I don't want people to think that their current zoning is affected. This only enhances what they're currently zoned in terms of their ability to perhaps do something there. And then coming back to the committee gives all of us some time to review the 70+ page document that you sent along, that I think all of us want to review. I'm about halfway through, so I still need to finish that document. And with that said, I'll recognize Council Kobus, and then anybody else that has any questions for Catherine or Gary.
Outstanding. Thank you, President Cooper and Catherine and Gary. Thank you so much for coming in and for introducing this. That the 70-page document and those maps are incredible. I still need to take some time with that, but I have so I would definitely welcome you to come back to the committee once we've had a chance to digest this a little bit more. But the couple quick questions I had now. First, one of the main ones was if this was an overlay district or not, and so you answered that. The other thing, so what exactly do we need to approve as a city council? Are we approving this request to the state in the 70-page document, or are we setting out what some of the percentages are? Is that included in this document for what the percentage discounts are for the ties?
Sure.
Or, I know in the presentation you talked about anywhere from, I think, 10 to 100% of the of the increase over what it's assessed at now is.
Yeah, we aren't recommending any specific projects for ratification right now. This is a preliminary step. What the council needs to do is to approve and adopt the plan itself, the HD zone and the plan, and send them up to the state where they get certified. So at this point in time, it's a plan like any other. You choose to adopt it. That allows us to use this tool.
Okay. And then, so once we adopt the HDIP program and we want to, if people start to apply for these ties, is the council involved at all in setting the rates, the discount, and how does that work? Or is that?
The process flows through the Economic Development Incentive Board, which is a seven-member body. It's going to be negotiated predominantly based on need. I did discuss that question early on with the board. Would you put more weight on, the overall economic impact to the city, or would you put more weight onto the need of the developer, or the project won't go through? The answer was very much the latter element. So that percentage will be negotiated. It's a little bit flexible of a tool. Our peers in other communities use it the same way. It's not something where you assign a set percentage based on meeting X, Y, and Z criterion, because sometimes the need supersedes that. However, it will be ratified by the council after the board decides on a certain potential. So that's where the council will come in on the individual tax increment exemptions.
And might I add too, while this is a new tool, the HDIP, we've had about 25 years experience with the EDIP. So it works the same way. The application process goes through the EDIP. We've done that for the last quarter century. After we get an approval, we send it down to the city council for ratification. So while this might sound a little unique, its counterpart, or it's the other side of the ledger, the economic development piece, we've been administering that program flawlessly for the last 25 years. So and we'll be able to, if you like, at one of your committee meetings, kind of talk some parallels between HDIP and EDIP to give you more sense of comfort about how we've administered that in the past. And I don't see how we would really deviate at all working with the HDIP, Councilor Cobus.
Perfect. And the last question I have is, once we establish this zone, can we then expand it in the future? Are we limited to the size or the area that we specify as the housing development zone?
Well, Gary, Stephanie, and I took a drive around the perimeter, really trying to have a lot of foresight into the boundaries of what we could consider this district. There really isn't a lot of multifamily potential outside those bounds that is contiguous with the downtown. However, if we do need to amend it, we can do so. We just have to go to the state, and it's a fairly lengthy process, just like having this initial conversation would be.
Okay.
So the good news is, should we decide at some point a few years out after we get our feet wet, implement the program, and we find that there's a need to expand, the good news is we can if we need to.
We can.
There's a process.
A painful process.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, it's good to know though. Thank you so much, and thank you for introducing this.
Just two other things that came to my mind before I see if anybody else has any other questions for you, Catherine and Gary, is when you come back before the committee, really talking about parking impacts to these enhancements and what the plan might be to mitigate some of that. And then is there a date, and we don't, give you some time to think about answering that question, but I'm certain it will come up. And then is there a date? Tell me if there's a timeline that you need to have this because we're in budget season. I don't want to lose sight of this with other competing priorities of the council, and I would hate to push it to July 21st if that's too late, because that's our next meeting after next week. So I just want to know.
Right. I had been assuming the July date myself, just knowing that this is budget season and knowing the very lengthy meetings that you're going to be having within the next week. I I mean, we do have a developer who I know wants to speak on this issue, and I'll let him speak to the urgency. From my standpoint, I've already put the state on alert. They are expecting us to get it to them sometime soon. I didn't put a date on it, but they will be willing to turn it around as quickly as they can up at DHCD.
Great, thank you.
And I did want to speak because you asked a question earlier about how developers can become aware of this tool. The funny thing is that even in this very strange economic climate that we're seeing right now, I continue to get at least one call a week from an interested developer in one of our properties down here that could potentially be redeveloped, and they might potentially need this tool. So I think that it's more a matter of us being able to select the projects that best fit with our vision for the downtown and adding this as a bonus, as opposed to let's advertise this to try to get people in here. Because I think that Attleboro has really attracted the attention of a lot of developers. This is the kind of tool that can address issues that we have, like, for example, with parking. If it can allow them to free up some of the budget to place more parking underneath the building, for example, that could be a solution. So I think that this is it's a good tool to have and to use for projects that we select rather than broadly marketing it to anybody.
Great, thank you. Any other additional questions from the council for Gary and Catherine at this time? Okay, I don't see any. So let me just see if there's anybody else on. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? I see, just dropped off. Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Okay, so Mr. Kobus.
Hey, Mark. We just brought in Jonathan Cousins, who would like to speak.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Jonathan, are you speaking in favor?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Great. That's what I assumed, but I just wanted to make sure. So your name and address for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Sure. Name is Jonathan Cousins. Address is 155 Orchard Hill Road, Haverhill, Massachusetts, 01835. Yes, I'm with Lead Properties. We are real estate developers, and we are very hopeful to develop the building at 54 Union Street, right across from the commuter rail. This HDIP tool is, as Catherine mentioned, it's actually essential for the development of these old historic brick buildings, which can be very costly. Without tools like this, in fact, just financially on paper, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for the banks. It doesn't work for developers like myself. And it just, unfortunately, it just doesn't work like it would in, let's say, Boston, where the property value is already there.
Mr. Cousins, is this, or Gary, or Catherine, is this the Manicus building?
Yes, Council
Thank
President.
you. Thank you. All right. Any questions or any comments for Mr. Cousins at this time? Councilor Conti.
Mr. Cousins, if you could you give us an indication of past projects you've had and done and how this state funding assisted you?
Yes, we just finishing up a project in Haverhill, Massachusetts. It's a very similar project. It's right in the center of downtown Haverhill, and we are using HDIP funding for this project to make it work. And there's actually been several other developers, neighboring developers in Haverhill that have also used HDIP funds to make their projects work as well.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome. Any additional questions for Mr. Cousins at this time? Great. Jonathan, thank you for joining. More to come.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Jim, I don't see anybody else on, so I think we're safe. Other than Jeremy. All right. Mr. Kobus, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I don't right now, but just because of COVID-19 and having these virtual meetings, can we keep it open for maybe a week or allow people to mail in comments if they have any? So let's close it, but allow people to mail in comments over the next week.
They can still send stuff in writing to the committee.
Okay.
And they can also address it to the economic development incentive board as well, too, if they wanted to.
Perfect.
Share
I'm
any
comfortable
comments.
closing it. Thank you.
And just to refresh everybody's memory, Council Conti and myself sit on that board. Again, we've been hearing this great work sort of coming down the track. So this is exciting, and thank you, Catherine and Gary. And Council Kobus will reach out to set up a committee meeting that works.
Excellent.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much. And Jim, thank you for offering the studio so they could come present this and get the information to us and to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice for the next public hearing?
I will. The second public hearing is relative to the fiscal year 2021 general budget.
Thank you. I know Jeremy's on the line. I'm not sure if he was just coming to listen or if he was coming to speak. So at this time, I'll see if there's anybody here to speak in favor. Anyone here to speak in favor of the general government budget? Anyone in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against?
Jeremy is on the line.
Oh, Jeremy, did you want to address the council on this at all, or were you just?
I'm here to answer any questions to support the council in any clarification, any members of the public who need a clarification of the budget. I think it suffices to say that I am in favor of the budget that the administration presented. So any pieces of clarification that the council needs at this point, I'm happy to provide. Otherwise, I'll stand by for anything else.
Great, thank you. Before I ask Mr. Delisio if we want to close, I just do want to make one comment. I did speak to the mayor and talk to him via text and email. He stands by his message, and he did send us all an email about the proposed cuts that I want to make sure that you all received. If you haven't, please reach out to Virginia so you get it. And I know that individual counselors have had conversations with Jeremy and or Deb about particular issues of interest to them. So at this time, Mr. Delisio, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No, I do not.
Thank you. That public hearing is closed. Did I close the other public hearing?
You did, yes.
Okay, I didn't write that down, so.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Would you kindly read the notice of the next public hearing?
Yes, it's a public hearing relative to the fiscal year 2021 water enterprise budget.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone neither for nor against? Again, my comments are the same from the previous hearing. I would only add that one comment in that this year is unique as we're going through this budget process in this way. We don't often get a lot of attendance at the budget public hearing, but I think as counselors, we get a lot of calls and inquiry. And this year in particular, I think I've received more calls and inquiry than any other in the 10 years that almost 10 years that I've been a counselor. So again, the mayor sent us an email on our discussion we had about some proposed cuts. He sent a response to that is available for the public to view if anybody wanted it. And I just want to make sure all the counselors have a copy. If you don't, please reach out to Virginia. Mr. Delicio, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. That public hearing is closed. Mr. Withers, would you kindly read the notice of the third public hearing?
The fourth,
Oh, the fourth, I'm sorry.
public hearing relative to the fiscal year 2021 wastewater enterprise budget.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone neither for nor against? Again, ditto the comments from the previous two. Mr. Delicio, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. That public hearing is also closed. And we will move on to the mayor's communication, but Steve, you got to give me 30 seconds so I can open it here on my computer.
All right.
And with that, I'm off as a participant. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for all your time, Jeremy. Okay, I'm ready, Steve. Whoop. Did Steve go? Oh,
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, June 16th, 2020, dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from Water Superintendent Courtney Wunschel regarding the need for funds to purchase a replacement pump, motor, and check valve for the east well at the Wading River plant. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $14,846 from account Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account Water Enterprise Fund Treatment Plant Supplies. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
The city of Attleboro is happy to announce that Margaret Goulet of 111 Grant Street, Attleboro, has been appointed the state member of the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority by Governor Charlie Baker to fill a vacant seat, term to expire November 22nd, 2023.
Thank you. That's an FYI to all counselors.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding the need for funds to replace the lockers in the locker room. The lockers were installed in 1985 and have served their useful life and need to be replaced. The funds for this project are available due to the courthouse being closed because of the COVID-19, and the overtime for police officers will not be used. In order to start this project prior to the end of fiscal year 2020, I respectfully request to be considered as an emergency measure. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $38,270.05 from account police court time to account police lockers. In accordance with Article 2, Section 2-9B of the City Charter of the City of Attleboro, I respectfully request your honorable body to consider this as an emergency measure. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding a vehicle that the Department of Public Works would like to declare as surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. It is a 1998 Ford F800 in inoperable condition.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Building Commissioner William McDonough regarding the need to increase the expenditure limits in revolving fund 2603 Protective Inspection Services to $250,000 prior to the end of fiscal year 2020. Due to both the change in which the electrical inspector is paid and the incredible increase in permit applications, the increase is needed in order to allow the payments for the inspections in fiscal year 2020. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body increase the expenditure limit in revolving fund 2603 Protective Services to $250,000. Additionally, it is requested that the proposed change take place prior to July 1st, 2020. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Water Superintendent Courtney Wunschel regarding the need for funds to purchase a chain hoist at the Wading River Pump Building. The current chain hoist was installed prior to the plant upgrade in 1990, and the most recent inspection showed deficiencies in both the bridge beam carrier wheels and the travel mechanism. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $8,399 from account Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account Water Enterprise Fund Safety Equipment. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please. Steve, we lost you.
Hello?
Oh, you're back. We lost you.
Hello?
I can hear you. I can hear
No?
you all right.
No, we can't hear a thing.
I can hear you.
I can hear Steve too.
I
But I
can't
don't
hear.
think he
Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Joe? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, I know
So-
this feeling.
Oh, it's terrible. So I'm going to keep reading 7 until he can hear us. So item number 6.
We went silent. We can't hear anything.
Item number 6 was Public Works. So I'm on to number 7. As your honorable body may recall, the Mondo Gymnasium floors at Hyman Fine Elementary School and Hill Roberts Elementary School are categorized as urgent in the fiscal year 21-25 capital improvements programs.
Who's talking?
That's me.
Mark.
Can you hear me now?
Where's Mark over here?
These floors are original to the building and were installed in 1975. The average life expectancy of these floors is between 10 to 20 years. Unfortunately, this project is not MSBA reimbursable. The time has now come to finally replace these gymnasium floors and perform the required mitigation to the floor material and the mastic used to secure the floor to the subfloor due to the presence of mercury. A recent analysis of the gymnasium floors has the estimated cost to repair and replace both floors at $516,000. Mercury rubber floor removal and containment, $280,000. Replacement wood floors, $200,000. Environmental hygienists monitoring, $16,000. Total estimate is $496,000 with a $20,000 contingency for a total project cost of $516,000. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $526,000 be appropriated for the cost of the removal and replacement of the gymnasium floors and environmental hygienist monitoring, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, of which amount up to $10,000 may be used for costs associated with the issuance of bonds or notes for this purpose. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $526,000 under section 7.1 of chapter 44 of the general laws, or any other enabling authority, that the mayor is authorized to take any other necessary or convenient to carry out this project. Any premium received by the city upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this order, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of costs by this order in accordance with chapter 44, section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. And that will go to the budget committee. Mr. Delicio, would you like to call for a public hearing on July 21st?
Yes, I would.
Oh, and I have to have a roll. Steve, can you hear me yet? Now, this is going to be a true test of my clerk's ability. This might be a job interview for me right now. Better watch out. I forgot who we left off with.
Mark, I think Diana did it last time.
She did, yep. So now I got to remember the order.
Okay.
Sarah Reynolds, Laura Dolan, Todd Hovis.
I'm back.
Hold on. Oh, perfect timing, Steve.
Where are we at? I don't know.
I read item number 7. I called for a public hearing. I called for a public hearing on July 21st.
Yep.
And we need to roll call vote for that public hearing.
Starting with
Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We will have a public hearing on item number 7 on July 21st.
Okay. I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding the 60-month lease purchase agreement with Ford Motor Credit Company, LLC, for 8 2020 Toyota Sienna vans for the Transportation Department. Under section 5.8 of the city ordinance, any lease or lease purchase agreement binding the city beyond the fiscal year in which it is agreed to must have the approval of the mayor and municipal council. Please note that this quote expires on July 15th, 2020. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to approve the 60-month lease at your next meeting. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. City Property and Claims Committee, please, just before you move on from that item, I do want to point out, Council Reynolds, that when this motion comes before the council, the amount of the appropriation should be included in the motion, and the date. Virginia and I touched base today. Please touch base with her on the timing of this so that we can meet the July 15th deadline for the lease.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Judith Lusk, 17 Blackbourne Road, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Board of Library Trustees, term to expire February 2022. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Health Agent Alan Perry regarding the proposed changes to Section 7-7 Collection of Domestic Solid Waste, Section 7-8 Solid Waste Collection Fees, and Section 7-9 Unauthorized Dumping in the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro. The proposed changes are needed due in part to the new contract the city has executed with its waste hauler and the changes being made to the rubbish and recycling program. City Solicitor Cynthia Amara reviewed the changes to the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro and approved them as to form. Copies in your packets. Therefore,
Steve, I'm going to waive the reading of the sections 7-7, 7-8, and 7-9.
Yep.
And that item will be assigned to ordinances, elections, and legislative matters, and requires a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Is that for the public hearing, Mr. President?
Oh, yes. Let's do that first. Councilor Holmes, how does July 21st sound for the public hearing on that matter?
Yes, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll have a roll call vote for the public hearing beginning with Councilor Blair.
Yep, Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All right. Moving right along. I respectfully submit a communication from a legal secretary, Allison Wood, regarding vans that the school department would like to declare surplus for trade-in value as a condition of the new van lease agreement. The lease agreement will expire on July 15th, 2020. A memo to surplus the vans was circulated to the departments on June 9th with a response date of June 29th. To date, there is no interest from the departments. In order to surplus these vans before the lease agreement expiration date, I respectfully ask your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for trade-in at your next available meeting. This vote will be effective June 29th, 2020 to fulfill the 20-day response period. Copies in your packets. And there are a fleet of 2015 Toyota Sienna minivans with the following VIN numbers. And I don't know if you want me to read it or not, but
I do not.
Okay.
That matter will go to City Property and Claims Committee, please.
Okay, this serves to notify you that the city is eligible for approximately $3.9 million in federal assistance for COVID-19 related expenses, which is being administered by the state. By way of background, the Federal CARES Act allocated $150 billion to cities and states for unbudgeted COVID-19 related expenses. Massachusetts' share of that $150 billion is about $2.7 billion. Of that $502 billion that can be used for city and town COVID-19 related reimbursements, Attleboro's share of that $502 million is $3.9 million. The state invited the city to apply to the Coronavirus Relief Fund for expenses that have been or will be incurred in fiscal year 20. We'll have future separate application for fiscal year 21 expenses. Part of our instructions were to apply for items that are not eligible for FEMA reimbursement. The state's preference is that municipalities seek FEMA reimbursement before seeking CARES Act /CVRF reimbursement. As such, including the school department, the water and wastewater departments, and city departments, I applied for $730,464 from the CVRF on the water and wastewater departments and city departments. I applied for $730,464 from the CVRF on 6/5/2020. The city received that amount on 6/10/2020. This money is already being spent so that we can avoid deficit spending on unbudgeted COVID-19 expenses excuse me, in fiscal year 20. This, however, does not account for any lost revenues. Please note, the total cost of unbudgeted COVID-19 related costs assumed to be eligible for FEMA reimbursement is $331,102, of which 25%, or $82,775, is not eligible for FEMA reimbursement, as FEMA only reimburses 75% of our purpose year. The total cost of fiscal year 20 expenses not budgeted for to pay for the COVID-19 related expenses assumed to not be eligible for FEMA reimbursement is $647,689. And when combined with the 25%, the $82,775 not covered by FEMA, we are left with a total request from the CVRF amount of $730,464. It is also noteworthy that the federal government is expected to change the use of the $150 billion in CARES money, of which includes the $3.9 million Attleboro is eligible for through the CVRF. As stated at present, the CVRF is only good for unbudgeted COVID-19 related expenses. This is $150 billion in CARES money is expected to be voted on by the House and Senate to expand eligible uses and include lost revenues. The balance of the $3.9 million we are not applying for in fiscal year 2020 reimbursement may be applied for the future in fiscal year 21.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
Sincerely, Paul Haro, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go on to the reading of the other clerk's communications, please.
All right, we received a letter from Mark Kolakowski regarding the need for change of hours at the compost center.
Ordinances, elections, and legislative matters, please.
We received a letter from Mark Rio to express opposition to the water department proposed fee increases and request no decision until a live public hearing can be held safely.
Ordinances, elections, and legislative matters committee, please.
We received a letter from Kyle Stevens requesting the council approve funding for body cameras for the Attleboro Police Department as is in the capital improvements plan.
Capital Improvements Committee and the administration.
We received a certificate of vote in the affirmative to recommend $6,900,000 loan for the library is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan.
Capital Improvements Committee, please.
And we received a certificate of vote in the affirmative to recommend the $357,000 loan for police vehicles is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan.
Public Safety Emergency Management Committee, please.
And that is all, Mr. President.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we will move to committee reports, beginning with Councilor Blair.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one motion, and it's an emergency preamble for this evening. I move that the Attleboro Municipal Council vote to take action as provided in the city charter, section 2-9B, regarding a time-sensitive emergency to approve the transfer of $38,270.05 to replace the lockers of the Attleboro Police Department locker room before the end of FY 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order, Councilor Blair.
I had quite a lengthy conversation over the last week, a couple times with the chief. These lockers were originally installed in 1985. And they have, not only don't they have enough, but what they do have is placed in closets, storage rooms, hallways. The ones in the locker room themselves were part of, do you remember we had a sewage leak a short time back over there? We had to replace some of the sewage pipe from the second floor, and it did flood the locker room. To to the chief's belief and myself, these still remain unsanitary. They should be replaced as an outside health hazard possibility there. The money that he's asking to be transferred is in the police budget for this year under overtime for the courthouse. And seeing the courthouse has been closed, they haven't spent any of that money. I haven't spent any of it. What's remaining is plenty to cover this particular cost. The other, we had some lockers replaced in mid-90s, but those were used lockers. They come from Seekonk. When they redid their police station down there, the lockers weren't in great shape at the time, but it sufficed the shortage that we had. It's of my opinion that where this isn't new money, it's money that's available through the present budget, not using it for police overtime for the courthouse. It seems to me that this is a great time to catch up on those locker room necessity lockers for our police department, our police personnel, and that we could certainly do it without hurting anything, was transferring that money out of a account that's has a surplus in it. Have any
Thank you.
questions?
Any additional questions? And this is on the emergency preamble to declare it emergency. Any questions? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds, Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus, Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
She said yes.
Good. I
Steve,
lost him.
we can't hear you again. We lost you, Steve.
sorry, Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of July 21st, 2020, I entertain a motion that the Attleboro Municipal Council, as an emergency measure, approve the transfer of $38,270.05 from account 121010000-515020, police court time, to account 121010000-584057, police lockers. Wait a second. I had to change some numbers, so I
Out again.
sure I read this right.
Okay.
For the replacement of police department lockers before the end of FY 2020.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have-
Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
I think I tried to cover it in the emergency preamble section.
Any additional questions? Councilor Cobus.
I just, it's really based on the budget and everything that's going on. It's I'm finding it difficult to vote yes on this, and right now I'm leaning towards voting no, and not because I disagree that the police need this, but I really want to figure out what's going on with federal funding and the money coming in from the feds, and actually have the money in hand before agreeing to spend this kind of money. And I really struggle with this one. I know how important it is, but right now that's the way I'm leaning.
Mr. Cobus, I appreciate your thoughts, but from talking with Kyle over the last 2 weeks, as I brought up, this is a potential health situation over there. There's a shortage. If it was new money, a new appropriation coming down out of the general fund or something, I would tend to agree with you more. But where this money is actually sitting there unused, overtime for the court officers, I think this is the appropriate time. I really do believe this is the appropriate time to get this job done.
Any additional questions or comments? Councilor Delissio.
Thank you. Through the chair to Chairman Blair. Peter, is this also drawn out of a need for social distancing, given the fact that there aren't enough lockers due to the COVID, and that certainly plays a part into this as well?
Reconfiguration down there, I assume, is part of the plan. And it's a mess over there with these lockers. And they're well used, well abused, been dunked in human waste. The money's there. There's absolutely, in my opinion, no reason why we shouldn't vote this through.
Thank you.
Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Cobus, I share your concerns. And I share them because I work in a city where we just passed out 160 teacher pink slips because of what's going on. But I did read the mayor's message about his confidence in the federal reimbursement, and then reading the mayor's communication tonight and his $730,464 that's coming in seems to prove that he is right, that there's federal money pouring into the budget. As much as I would like to see the overtime budget in the police department reduced, I'm also well aware, my committee toured that police department. I think, Todd, you were there. I think Councilor Dolan was there, in that police locker area that was down by the lockdown area. And when I read this tonight, I was a little surprised that the chief had isolated this particular project as the most urgent capital improvement. I thought that was going to be his fingerprinting the machine, but I trust his judgment, and if he thinks that this project is the most urgent, and he does see the overtime, that's because the municipal council approved the overtime budget last year. It's available to him. So, Councilor Cobus, half of me is with you, but it's 49%. The other 51% is going with the chief of police, because we've already approved the overtime money, and I understand his pressing. I agree with his ability to run his department. And that concludes my comments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Councilor Cobus.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. And I am very much torn on this. I have the utmost respect for Police Chief Hagney and his ability to run the department. But one of the things that I'm also hesitant about, and I struggled with last year, was with this coming in just under the wire before the end of the fiscal year as an emergency measure for us to act on this right now before the money doesn't just turn into a pumpkin like I think we talked about last week. We would just have to wait for free cash to be certified. I believe the schools have about $1 million that will be coming back from the school budget and coming back in. And so I'm a little bit hesitant to spend this money at the end of the fiscal year, just because it's either use it or lose it time. Or so that's, I struggle with that a little bit as well.
Just one more thing I might answer to that is, it's really not use it or lose it. That's a necessity over there. As I pointed out, that room was flooded with raw storage. I don't think it can adequately cleaned up. The reason it wasn't done when they redid the sewer problem, took care of that, was the what do you call it? The deductible from our insurance policy didn't. By the time they took the deductible off, there wasn't enough insurance money to finish the project. So he's actually finishing a project that should have been finished at the time of that unfortunate incident. That ends my comments.
Council Conti and then Delicio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Kovas, through the chair to Councilor Kovas. I am bothered all year long by the demands of the capital improvement program that don't get met in our city budget, and our inability to place a sizable budget in our line item in our budget to tackle the thick book of projects that have been going on for years and years and years and years and years. I celebrated tonight in reading about the gym floors coming down for a bond, but I also recognize that the bonding and the debt service is a constant discussion among the administration. So in that light, I'm happy to see an item come off the capital improvement plan. And I know how difficult it is to get the money to be able to fund these projects. And projects only get worse and worse and worse each year with deterioration and depreciation. So, Councilor, you do have my heart. I agree that just because they've been budgeted the money that it doesn't need to be spent, and I agree that coming down at the end of the year and an emergency measure is odorous, but I really want to see the item come off the capital improvement plan, and that concludes my comments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Delicio.
Thank you. So, Council Corpus, I share, and we've talked about this during the budget meetings. I share your concern. I think this is a difficult year. I think there's a lot of things we're going to need to hit the pause button on. However, with this one, when it's something that for the safety of the officers needs to be done, it's something that he's transferring in between, among his own accounts. That's more palatable for me than if he was asking for an appropriation from free cash or another revenue source. I think at the end of the year, and it's not uncommon to see people or department heads wait until they have a firm understanding of what funds they're going to need at the end of the year, and then be able to address the needs of that department. It's tough when it comes down to this, but I think Peter Blair did a really nice job of explaining the use of this. So for those reasons, I am in favor of it, but that doesn't mean everything that comes down is going to have the same sentiments from me.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
Before we take the vote, take the vote, and before I close my committee, I have an announcement I'd like to make.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments regarding the emergency preamble? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required and begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
No.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson. Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Mr. Kovas.
No.
Mrs. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
9 yeas, 2 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you, my fellow councilmen. While I still have the floor, I'd like to relay a message from Chief Hegney to the councilmen, to all of you, but to the councilmen in particular that got in touch with him over the last few days, thanking him and giving him some kudos on how he handled the demonstration at the park and the demonstration at the police station. Kyle has definitely the backing of his police department. I spoke to 2 or 3 of them over the last couple of days, and they were proud to be on the police department with him as a chief taking care of that situation so that it didn't ignite into something which could have been, a major concern. We would have made the Boston papers, and we really didn't want to do that. So he said, thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Mr. Blair?
No, not at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next? Counselor DeSimone.
Yes, President Cooper, Transportation and Traffic has nothing to report this evening. We would ask for a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Counselor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one motion to bring before council this evening. From the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I move to approve $27,000 to be used from the Library Project Fund 3546 for the design of the elevator modernization and any project costs related to the library construction project authorized by council vote on February 18th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments, Counselor Conti?
Yes. John Jacoby, the chairman of the building commission, circulated to all councilors a letter from Bargman, Hendry and Archetype Inc. I don't think I can share this on my screen. I'm trying. Can you all see it?
Got it.
Make it bigger, Richard.
Make it bigger. Now you're really pushing it.
You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
Look like this. And in this letter from the architectural firm, they state to Jeremy that they're submitting a proposal for $8,740 to use as a part of the $27,000 that they have left over on their original task order. So the money is there and the elevator is in need. And I would urge my fellow councilors to support this measure. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan. Ms. Dolan. Ms.
Thumbs
Dolan?
up.
My key didn't work. Yes, yes.
Okay, Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delisio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Delisio. I'm sorry, Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes the business that the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. But we look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Counselor Waterman.
Yes, from the docket of June 16th, 2020, in the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, I move to transfer $7,587.02 from the Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to the Veterans Earned Time Payment to fund the anticipated retirement of an employee before the end of the fiscal year.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments, Counselor Waterman?
I don't believe so. I explained that last week, I think.
Great. Any additional questions from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required and we'll start with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delisio,
Yes.
Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And from the docket of June 16th, 2020, I move that in accordance with section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, that the city accept the generous donation of $300 in Stop and Shop gift cards from the Holiday Spirit Committee to the Veterans Office.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
None, except this was a Christmas gift, I think.
Thank you. The roll call vote is required, and we'll start with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And from the docket also of June 16th, 2020, I move to approve the following reappointments for the positions and terms as indicated. Thomas Lee being reappointed to the Conservation Commission for 3 years to expire his term February 2023. Alexandra Sawyer to be reappointed to the Youth Commission for 3 years, expiring February 2023. And Catherine Merkel to be reappointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals for 3 years, term to expire also February 2023.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments?
None. They're all very glad to continue working and helping the city.
Great. Thank you. Roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And also from the docket of June 16th, 2020, I move to approve the appointment of Frederick Garapi, 1077 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Park Commission, term to expire February 2024.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
Only that Fred, who's oftentimes called Rick, is very, very pleased to return as he once served also on the Park Commission. He understands the work of the Park Commission well, and he values it.
Great. Any additional comments, questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Cobus?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Conti?
Yes.
DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And now from the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I move to transfer $3,772.02 from the citywide reserve fund for transfer to correct a miscalculation of the top step grade 25 and grade 24 in the AMCA salary table, and to request the funds to go to the following accounts: $349.83 accounts, 83 cents to the assessor prior year salary, $349.83 account to police prior year salary, $762.84 in the account fire prior year salary, $783.84 account park prior year salary, $762.84 in the account collector prior year salary, and $762.84 in the account veterans prior year salary.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments?
I think we have discussed this enough, and I trust that there is an understanding of the miscalculation that was made some time ago and is now being corrected.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions from the council?
President Cooper?
Yes.
I didn't get the second on that one.
Councilor Jackson.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And also from the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I move to transfer $937.60 from the account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account veterans salary to correct a miscalculation in fiscal year 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments or questions?
I think we have discussed this, and I trust there's an understanding about this miscalculation as well.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote. We'll start with Counselor Holmes. Steve?
He looks frozen.
He looks frozen.
I'm back.
Okay.
I keep going out. I don't know what's going on. Who are we starting with?
Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
And also from the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I move to transfer $556.33 from the account Water Enterprise Fund, Reserve Fund for transfer, to the account Water Enterprise Fund, prior year's salary to correct a miscalculation.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
None on my end.
Thank you.
We talked about it.
Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Counselor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
And also from the docket.
Wait a minute. Wait, Ty.
I'm sorry.
We might have lost Steve again. So that motion passes 11-0. And now you can go on to the next one.
All right. So also from the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I move to approve the wastewater internal transfer of $1,319.18 to this miscalculation for a fiscal year 2020 salary.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
I do not have any.
Steve, you still look frozen.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I don't know what's going on.
Any additional questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Counselor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And now finally, from the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I move to approve the requested change to the current personnel rules and regulations for the city's exempt group. Article 19, stipend. The change is for the addition of Section 2 for the MIS director to receive an annual stipend to perform the city's telephone network communication duties. The stipend applies and is payable for fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments or questions, Council Waterman?
I believe this has been thoroughly discussed, and this applies just for the next year.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Councilor Delissio.
Thank you, President Cooper. So per the mayor's note to the council tonight, the 150 billion in CARES money is expected to be voted on by the House and Senate to expand eligible uses and could include lost revenues, but hasn't been yet. And we don't know when they plan to vote. Until that vote is taken, and it should be in the affirmative when it is, I think the responsible thing to do is wait until we have a better understanding of what and how we will be able to use the CARES Act proceeds. These are tough times, some of the toughest we've seen in quite some time, and that has to be front of mind right now. I am 100% in favor of making Mr. Lennox whole, but I would be more comfortable looking at this again in the fall when free cash is certified and we're in a better position to do such. I was able to speak with Mr. Lennox this afternoon and explain my stance with him. Mr. Lennox certainly does his fair share around the city, and my desire to hold off until fall is in no way an indication that I'm against the motion or Mr. Lennox, but I do have concerns regarding the timing of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, President Cooper. I support what Councilor Delissio just stated. I have flip-flopped on this issue for several days now, not because Mr. Lennox is in any way undeserving, not because I don't value the work that he does, in particular this service that he provides, but it's simply for me about the timing and the unknown. So I appreciate Councilor Delissio's approach to postponing, if you will. Not denying, but postponing for the moment this issue, and I am in support of that action at the moment.
Thank you. Any additional question? I think I saw, Richard, did you have a question? Was your hand up?
It isn't, but I see Mr. Cobus has his hand up. You can come back to me later.
Okay, great. Thank you, Richard. Council Cobus.
I'll keep my comment short. It's the same as we've talked about before, and just being uncertain with what's going to happen. Obviously, I support Bill Lennox. I think if he were to come back in the fall, I could get behind this. Ultimately, I think it should be part of the job description, but that's not what we're talking about right now. And also in having conversations with our state delegation earlier today, there was a briefing from the chair of the Ways and Means Committee at the state, and they're now over $6 billion short in revenue at the state level. So that's a 20% loss compared to what they saw last year already, and it's still going up. And also on Sunday night when we had the COVID-19 video conference, Senator Markey jumped in. One of the things we asked him was what's going on with funding for municipalities. And all we received was a political answer about red states versus blue states. And, he's going to fight as hard as he can. But we have no idea when that is. And I can go outside and do a rain dance. I can hope, I can pray. But until we have that money in hand, I'm going to be nervous. And so that's why I'm not going to support this right now.
Any other additional questions or comments? Council Waterman.
I do support this. We are talking basically weekend duties and for an amount which is not in here, but the amount is $8,000. And if we don't have somebody here in the city fixing the telephone network, we're going to be calling an outside vendor in that will charge significantly more. And the only other option is that he volunteers his time. So I am supporting it. He's been volunteering his time for 5 or 6 years now. Thank you. That's the end of my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Yes.
Councilor Holmes, and then Blair, and then Conti.
Thank you. I agree with what Councilor Delissio and Councilor DeSimone had mentioned. I And I also really agreed last week with Council Reynolds for making the change to make it only a year. But, and I also agree with Councilor Kovas about changing the job description and trying to include it in there. I really feel like that would really, what I would be most comfortable with is somebody not having 2 stipends and their pay. I think we really need to look at the job description. That role has changed so much over the years. And I would appreciate it if the personnel office would seriously consider that. So at this point, I don't think I can support this motion and would be open to it coming out in the fall. But mostly, if it comes out in terms of a job description, and that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Blair and then Councilor Conti.
I will be supporting this because he's donated his time for the last 5 or 6 years. He does a great job. It's nothing that he isn't due. It's not a tremendous amount of money. And as Mr. Waterman said, and I agree with him, if it comes to a point that you have to call Verizon in to do a telephone repair during any time in the next 4 or 5 months, or something goes down, you're going to spend a lot more than $8,000. If you've ever had them come into your home for something that's not working, the bill is astronomical. I can only imagine what it would be on a citywide situation. So whereas this is proposed for just the year to come, some coming year, I don't think it's out of the realm of reality in doing it. It's something that our personnel director said he would look into as far as redoing the job description. It'll give him time to do it. It'll give him time for it to come up, get some positives and negatives, whatever, and get it done in the next year. But in the meantime, this gentleman would be getting paid what he's doing.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. President,
Yes,
just a little point of order. This is about the MIS director. It's not about the person, and I don't think we should be using the person's name because that could open us up to possible litigation. I believe. I'm just saying that to everybody on the screen. We should just be saying the MIS director.
I said
right.
Right.
Thank you. Councilor Conti and then Dolan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that this situation has been mismanaged in the past. I think that Mr. Kovas has finally got through to me, and I'm willing to shut the checkbook on this one because I'm hoping that nothing does go wrong and that we don't have to call an outside vendor to come in. And I'm hoping that we resolve the issue soon and get something rectified. But stipends just are not a good idea, and they're all over the place. This isn't the only stipend in the city budget, but it doesn't have my support, and that concludes my comment.
Thank you. Councilor Dolan.
I actually plan on supporting this. I agree with Councilor Blair and Waterman. You know, and I agree with a lot. I think the whole his whole job needs to be revamped as far as you know, his step and where he should be, like as far as like as high as like a superintendent level. I agree with all that. I also know that this director has been doing this for a long time and without a stipend. I don't really agree with stipends. I don't like stipends. And also, if we did have to call somebody, not only the cost of what that this would cost the city, which would, I assume, be enormous, where would we be on their list of importance? If you're not a customer, if you're not, you know, high on their list of somebody that you use, they might not get here. We can't afford to be down for a second in this city. So I will be supporting this, definitely. Thank you.
Council, Vice President Jackson.
Thank you, President Cooper. I too am going to support this. Our MIS director has been doing this for a long time, and he's finally getting recognized for doing everything he's been doing. And I just voted on some stupid lockers for $40,000 that could go right back into the general fund. But I supported it because I believed that the chief of police finds this deemed necessary. And if our mayor, and just looking back at all the years that I've been on the city council and known that this MIS director has been performing these duties all this time, it's $8,000. Give me a break. And he comes in all the time. He's there all the time. And it like Councilor Reynolds did. She's like, that was a great idea 1 year. And then let's just figure out how we can make this work more proficiently. But I am going to support this, and I wish more of you would.
Thank you. Any, Councilor Holmes?
I don't know what to say, but like call for a vote.
So are you moving the question?
Yes.
So we have to vote to move the question. A roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
No.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Waterman,
No.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
9 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you. So moving the question passes. There is no further discussion on this matter. We're going right to the vote. A roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes, and this is for the $8,000 stipend for the MIS director.
Ms. Holmes,
No.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
No.
Mr. Delissio,
No.
I'm sorry,
No.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
No.
Ms. DeSimone,
No.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
6 yeas, 5 nays.
Motion passes.
That concludes the business of the Veterans and Personnel and Human Services Committee for tonight. We'll meet at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Vice President Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for the Public Works Committee from the docket of June 16th, 2020. I move to approve the transfer of $3,000 from account parking and heating to the following: $1,000 to account park and supply grounds, $1,000 to account park foul weather. These funds are to purchase replacement backflow preventers for the irrigation systems, materials to repair the Wolfenden Fountain, and landscape materials and new safety gear.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
None tonight, sir. We discussed it last week.
Thank you. Roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair. Steve?
I believe so, yep. Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper, President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of June 16th, 2020, I move to approve the transfer of funds to perform a risk and resilient assessment of the water system required under the America's Water Infrastructure Act, AWIA, and $29,600 be transferred from account Water Enterprise Fund Chemicals to account Water Enterprise Fund Engineering Services.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Delissio.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments, Councilor?
We did have Superintendent Wunschel here. Thank you for asking her to come, Todd. She was here to answer other questions as well. And I am also going to ask to be first on board next Tuesday night because she is coming to my committee meeting again. So that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments, questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Reynolds.
She looks like she's trying to fix her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like.
Okay. Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
10.
Actually, there were 10. Sarah, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so,
I thought she came on and said yes.
okay, 11 yeas, 0 nays, motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes the business for Public Works Committee. And before I say goodbye to you all before the end of the night, I want to wish you all a happy Father's Day. Enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Delissio.
Thank you, President Cooper. There's no business before the Budget and Appropriations Committee tonight. However, we will be meeting tomorrow night to discuss the budget message at 6 p.m. I have canceled Thursday's meeting and would like to change the time for Fridays from 6 to 5. So the Budget and Appropriations Committee can read the budget as is into the record. That will be the only agenda item, is reading the budget on Friday into the record. We'll meet again Monday night at 6 for any last minute conversations, as well as anything that may come up, as well as we want to read the water and wastewater budget with updated information as was sent down to the council last week. I do want to thank Jeremy for his time and input throughout this process, as I don't expect him to be in attendance at the next 3 budget meetings. But that is all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Cobus.
Thank you. Reporting for Zoning and Land Use Committee, I have 2 items of business tonight. From the docket of June 16th, 2020, I move to approve the expenditure of the funds received by the city from the Green Communities grant of approximately $244,370 as awarded by the Office of Energy and Environmental Emergency Affairs, and also approve any further grant amendments.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
We discussed this last night. This is an expenditure of grant money now that we have been classified as a green community, and just appreciate all the work Gary Arazian and everybody have done to achieve that.
Great. Thank you.
I have the list of projects if anyone cares.
Yeah, you reviewed them last week at your committee meeting, and we did get copies of that. It's great the number of projects that we're able to do, and the city in your next motion is on the hook for $816 to get all those projects done. But I won't steal your thunder. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of June 16th, 2020, I move to transfer $816 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1124100-599-200 Citywide transfer to grant, and to further transfer $816 from account 1124100-599-200 Citywide transfer to grant to 232-6J4 499-600 Green Communities Grant transfer from general fund.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional questions or comments?
So this is to spend $816 to fund the final project, and I'm not going to try to encourage anybody to spend money on this, but I will be supporting this measure. It's only $816, and when I spoke to Gary Arasian, he said if this isn't approved, then we just won't be able to finish whatever the cheapest project on the list is. And on the list, that's the Finberg Field lighting improvements. But that project itself is expected to save the city $272 a year. So based on that, it's only $816. I'm going to support it, but I respect everybody else's decision.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair? Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
That concludes the business for the Zoning and Land Use Committee, and I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds.
No. Dolan?
No, Councilor Dolan. I'm sorry. Yep.
Licenses Committee has no business tonight, and I look forward to a committee meeting at the next appropriate time, please.
Thank you. Now, Councilor Reynolds.
Reporting for City Property and Claims Committee, I have two motions this evening. I am not going to read the account numbers because I read those into the minutes last week. From the docket of June 16th, 2020, I move to declare the following Health Department vehicle as surplus and available for disposition. It's a 2006 Dodge Caravan, and it's in poor condition.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Any from the council? Seeing none, roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes. Steve, did we lose you? You look frozen. Give him a minute. No? All right, so I'm going to do it. Oh, Steve, are you back? Oh, he's back. So roll call vote will begin with.
Shut down again? I don't know. I have no idea. It's dead.
He's dead. All right. So roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes. Councilor Holmes.
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds.
Yeah.
Councilor Dolan.
Yes.
Councilor, can't read my own writing. Cobus.
Yes.
Councilor Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Councilor Waterman.
Yes.
Councilor Conti.
Yes.
Councilor DeSimone.
Yes.
Councilor Blair.
Yes.
And me. 11 yeas, 0 nays. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper, President Cooper.
Thank you.
Docket of 16th, 2020, I move to transfer $5,422 from election printing and reproduction to election supplies, election equipment to fund the purchase of 6 Franklin 4-station voting booths.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional questions or comments?
I do not have any.
Great. Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair. Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Jacobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And that is all the business City Property and Claims Committee has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Counselor Holmes.
Thank you. Reporting for Ordinance, Election, and Legislative Matters Committee. This evening, I have four motions. From the docket of June 2nd, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve a change in parking ordinance 10-5 for the city of Attleboro to be amended as follows. 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets, delete Riverbank Road westerly side from 289 feet from County Street or 132 feet northerly. 10-5.3, time limited on designated places, delete 10-5.3 Riverbank County Street to 130 feet northerly. Insert 10-5.3 Riverbank Road southerly, 40 feet easterly from Cliff Street to County Street.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any additional comments? Counselor Holmes.
We talked about this in committee. It's looking really nice over there with the sidewalks. I don't know if anybody's driven down there. It really does look great. And this is just to make some additional parking, and the businesses and residents seem to be supportive of it. That concludes my comments.
Great. Any additional comments from the council? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required. And Steve, I believe, begins with Counselor Holmes.
I believe you're correct, yes. Ms. Holmes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio, Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair, Mr. Blair,
I'm sorry, yes.
President Cooper,
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of May 5th, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve the following amendments to section 12-2 through 12-5 of the revised ordinance of the city of Attleboro for fees charged by the Board of Recreation Commissioners and the Department of Parks and Forestry.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Counselor Holmes.
Thank you. So I'm going to direct people's attention to some of the changes that have been made here because this is a lengthy one. One of the changes is adding drone use to parks, which would now be prohibited. That was something that was recommended to be added here. The other area that's been added is in the past, the Board of Recreation Commissioners helped with the permitting process. Now there will also be the superintendent of parks and forestry and the recreation director that would be included in that process. So that seems to make sense because they really need to have that authority to be able to do that. The other major change is obviously the fee structure to visiting the zoo. And that would also begin January 2nd, 2021. So those are the major changes of this ordinance.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the council?
I have one.
Council Reynolds.
I know it's not a lot that he's asking for as far as fees for residents, and I don't have any issue for fees for those out of town, but I'm really opposed to any increases in fees as we move into the next couple of years. We don't really know what's happening. We don't know what kind of money the city's getting from the state. Councilor Colbert's even told us, and I knew I had read it many places before, how that we're in deep trouble. So I'd rather not see any fees be added to any residents in the city. So that is one thing. I don't know how we're voting on it, but I actually am opposed to that. And that's the end of my comments.
Any additional comments from anyone? Councilor Blair.
I agree with Sarah. you know, I know we have public hearings on things like this, but they're not true public hearings. Well, I'm adamantly opposed to rate fees, increases in fees where the public doesn't have adequate representation or the ability to be represented. Till we get away from this, I can't make myself vote for increased fees in any department.
Any additional comments, Council Holmes?
Thank you. One of the things we talked about during committee was, and even for the next two ordinances as well, is really trying to get some sort of timetable of when fees would be increased, so it's not random, because I feel like the last one happened, I want to say it was 2000 and I don't know if it was 12 or 14, but it would be nice if there was some sort of ability to review it every 5 years or 3 years, so that way it could be a little more predictable, because that could potentially help the process. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Reynolds and then Councilor Blair.
So I agree with Diana in that I do think that we should have some kind of a way that we're reviewing these, whether we review it every year or whatever. But because of the types of things that are happening right now, not just in Massachusetts, but countrywide, I just would, even if this was the 5th year and we were doing it, I would be adamantly opposed to any type of fee increase for the residents. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Blair.
Diane, thank you for your work on this. And you know, they suggested these are put off till the first of the year. So if they're put off to the first of the year, bring it back up in the fall. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Councilor Delicio and then Councilor Conti.
Thank you, President Cooper. So I agree with Peter, I agree with Sarah on this, but what makes this one a little bit different is it's a zoo and it's a revenue generator. The other two, you know, I'm going to refrain and hold my comments for those. This is a tough one. It was 2015 when we last reviewed these. The zoo's in a situation where right now they don't have any income coming in because they're not open yet. So I'm torn on this one because I like the fact that Derek's waiting until January, but you know, I think we need to give them some kind of forecasting tool, something that they can use to be able to plan the rest of their year. Well, we really run the realistic risk of either losing the zoo or having the zoo become uncredited. I don't know. This is a tough one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
So this has my support because I think the department needs to be functional, financially functional. If you're going to cut the fees, you're going to have to cut their revenues. And if you cut their revenues, you're going to have to cut their expenses. And I'm not quite in favor of that. I know we got a sizable revolving account there, but I think inflation is not dead and expenses keep going up. And I'm going to support the fee increase because I want to see a viable department. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Councilor Kovas.
I very much agree with Councilor Delicio and Councilor Conti, and am hesitantly supportive of this, and mainly because of the zoo. And the math I was trying to do was, I know we have a large fund, that reserve fund there, and trying to figure out like how long will that sustain us if we wait until next year. Can we drain it? And that's not what we should be looking to do to the zoo. So as a result, unfortunately, I know it's hard times for people across the city, but I am supportive of this.
Councilor Blair.
Just one more comment. These fees will not go into effect till January, am I correct? So
That is correct.
you're not gonna collect any more money between now and January. You know, and then January is, I think, an off couple of months for them. I don't see any reason why we couldn't revisit this in the fall, but I don't want to see the zoo go down either, don't get me wrong. And we have a superintendent down there that's working real hard to keep things going, short of help, so. I'm torn
So-
between this, I really am, the zoo and the park, so. We'll see
If
what
we-
happens when it comes up for a vote.
So my comments are, if this fee increase is a deterrent to attendance, then the revolving fund isn't funded enough to pay for the zoo. So this council will be faced with a different decision and how to supplement the revolving fund, which is what I think Council Conti was trying to say. That the zoo is almost fully funded by the revolving fund. And if it doesn't meet its membership targets, this is purely numbers. If they don't meet those membership targets, they are not going to meet the revenue. They are going to have a revenue shortfall, and they are going to come ask the city to pay for the difference until they can get to a place where they can be again fully funded from the revolving fund. So I'm really struggling with increasing the fee, knowing that that may further deter and decrease the revenue because people won't be going because they can't afford to go, which will then drive the revenue down. So I don't see this as a win anywhere other than evaluating the membership till January. And so I'm sort of in support, I think, of doing this at later on in the fall when we better understand what the new social distancing is going to allow for volume, if people are even going to want to go out and go into that environment, and what the membership is going to do over the summer. They've said it several times, the splash pad is closed, and that was a big revenue generator. And if the price goes up and they can't go to the splash pad, which was a big driver, that in and of itself tells me that the revenue is going to go down. So I'm just really on the fence about this. The timing, if we have till January, why do we have to do it today? And that concludes my comments. Any additional questions or comments? Councilor Jackson.
There we go. Sorry about that. So does anybody know, like, are we waiting till January because we want to notify the members, like give them enough time to be notified that the membership pricing has changed? Oh, I just got an answer, and I'm going to read it to you. Because it's more palatable during these tough times, and most people have already purchased memberships for the year, and it makes more sense. It makes more sense to start at the beginning of the year from scratch on January 1st, that rather than in the middle of our season.
Thank you, Councilor Holmes, and then Dolan. Councilor Dolan, did I see your hand? No, okay, and then Councilor Delissio.
Thank you. I think that if it's seeming like it's not going to have the support for the fee structure, that is something that we can make an amendment on. But there's other things in this ordinance that I wouldn't want to also say no to, like I had mentioned with the permitting process and being able to go to the recreation director and the superintendent of park and forestry. We really need to have them included in that process. So I would not want to just kind of get rid of everything. But if it's seeming like we don't have the support for the fee structure, we could always delete that, which would be, instead of, we would not delete section 12-3.7 in its entirety and replace that. We would just continue to keep it where it is to potentially review it in the future. So that is an option. So we don't have to delete everything. It's just my only concern. That concludes my.
Are you making an amendment to do that, Councilor Holmes?
I want to just put it out there. I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Maybe Councilor Randall.
Counselor Delicio and then Counselor Reynolds.
Mark, I gotta say, I appreciate your words. I think the way you put it kind of makes a little more sense. I think, you know, looking back on it, and I understand what Vice President Jackson was saying about it being the middle of the, you know, beginning of the calendar year, but the other piece of it, it's the middle of the fiscal year. So I would be all right putting this off, you know, until the fall, and just kind of, we've got to get a feel for what people are going to be willing to do. What's people's appetite going to look like to be going out? And I think that, you know, the biggest thing for them right now is that splash pad being down. What's next summer going to bring? I don't know. Once we get into January, I think you'll have a better understanding of what his memberships for his busy season, which usually starts April vacation and then goes through on a normal year, goes through April, May, and June. So if there's a way to, you know, kind of put a pin in this until the fall, I think we'll know a lot more about where we're at as, in general, as it relates to COVID and what our city finances look like then.
Thank you. Counselor Reynolds, I can't see a thing without my glasses, so just put a pin in it for 1 second. Okay.
So, Councilor Cooper, I would like to make an amendment to this, and I'm going to ask for your help because I don't have it right in front of me. I suggest that we amend and put off the fee structure until the fall, bring that back out, and we do exactly what Councilor Holm was suggesting as well, because I'm right on board with what you are, that this makes no sense to move it forward with the fee structure. So I would like to make an amendment to that, and if you could help me do that, that would be great.
Sure. So what I'm hearing, Councilor Reynolds, is you say to leave section 12.3.7 Capron Park Zoo admission fees and policies as is, and not amend to what is in the revised ordinance. Is that?
Yep, the text, the ordinance. But we would leave everything else that had been changed. It's not based on a fee structure, just all the other changes, the drone changes, the way that they're going to vote that. I'm very agreeable to that, and just want to keep section, what was it, 12 dash? I think
it's 12-3.7.
Remains the same.
Remains the same.
Yes. And I think we should take a vote on that, please. If we
Yeah. So do we have a second?
Second.
I think I heard Councilor Holmes first. Is that true?
Yes.
So this is on the amendment to leave section 12.3.7 as is and not delete and replace with. It's amended. The motion was made by Councilor Reynolds, seconded by Councilor Holmes. Any discussion on the amendment? Councilor DeSimone.
President Cooper, although I support the proposed amendments as written, I appreciate the argument stated about postponing the vote on the fees specifically. However, in agreeing to do that, I would ask that the zoo be on notice, and perhaps they already are, they very likely are already doing this, considering any and all other ways to generate revenue in this new world that we're living, if you will, based upon whatever rules and regulations come down the pike, because fees may not be enough if it gets as bad as it could be. That concludes my comment.
Thank you for those comments. Any, Councilor Delicio?
Can we just put a date in there as opposed to just saying the fall? Friendly amendment for November 1st, just throwing that out there.
So you want to amend the amendment to say November, but where do you, November to do what?
To revisit this, as opposed to just having the amendment, we'll revisit it in the fall. I think for planning purposes, so we can plan, so Derek can plan as opposed to just saying the fall, because that's any time from September through December.
Well, he could just come before us.
If they just come before,
Right.
yeah, wouldn't he just come?
So hold on for a minute. There's a motion in order, motion made by Council Delicio to add language that the council will reconsider the fee schedule in November. Is there a,
How about prior to December 31st? It gives a timeline. If we're saying that, you know, he's thinking about January, to be fair to him, I think it gives a timeline.
is there a second on the amendment to the amendment?
Second.
Thank you. Any additional comments, Councilor Delicio?
None, thank you.
So Council Holmes, I'll recognize you next. I won't support the amendment to the amendment. I think that right now, Derek's phone's probably blowing off his kitchen table with the people that are watching this and emailing him. I think that he will be, if he's not watching now, I'm sure he will come back and read this and tell us what, and send to us updated revenue projections, updated new programming. That's a possibility through Zoom that I think Councilor DeSimone was suggesting, and any other ideas that he has that might be revenue generating opportunities. I don't want to put us in a position where we say we have to do this by 12/31/20 in an ordinance when we're not very good at doing it now. We're supposed to review ambulance fees every year and we didn't do it this year. So I'm not in favor of doing this and I will not support it. And that concludes my comments. Any additional comments, Councilor? I think I saw Holmes and then Reynolds.
That's okay, thank you.
Are you all set, Councilor Holmes? Okay, thank you. Councilor Reynolds.
So I go right along with Councilor Cooper that I won't be supporting the amendment for the date. That's not really our jurisdiction. It's up for, I believe, up to the department head. Obviously, he's watching this, they're watching this. They'll come back with it when they're ready for it and when they've got the numbers and whatnot together. So I think my feeling is that we don't add additional tasks. We're just saying no to the change in the fee structure at this moment in time. The department head can come forward with a new request when the time is right.
Thank you. Any addition, did I miss somebody? Any additional questions on the amendment to the amendment? So we're voting to Councilor Delicio.
If there's no appetite, I would ask Peter Blair to remove his second and just no need to waste any further time.
I'll remove my second, President Cooper.
Thank you. So the amendment to the amendment second has been withdrawn. We're back to the amendment, which is to essentially leave the fees at the current fee structure, but adopt the rest of the ordinance. Any additional questions or comments on the amendment? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
No.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
No.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Mr. Kobus.
No.
Ms. Dolan. Ms. Dolan.
My apologies. No.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
7 yeas, 4 nays.
Motion passes. Now we are to the motion as amended. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call vote is required and we'll begin with Councilor Holmes.
You saying my name?
Steve, did you freeze?
I froze. I guess I'm back.
He was
It's like
holding his head a minute ago, so
it's going out every minute for about 30 seconds.
Oh, man.
All right. So anyway, where we at? The roll call vote?
A roll call vote on the motion as amended.
Yep. And beginning with Council Holmes?
Councilor Holmes, yes, sir.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan? Ms.
Yes.
Dolan?
Yes,
Yes?
yes.
No? Okay. Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
No, I said yes. Did you
Oh,
hear
I'm
me?
sorry. What? Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. I have just two more motions this evening. From the docket of April 21st, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendments for ordinance changes to the increased fees charged by the Water Department. The following amendments to section 16-10 through 16-14 of the revised ordinance.
Second,
Who was that?
DeSimone.
Thank you. Okay, motion's in order. Counselor Holmes.
Thank you. During there was one little adjustment we had to make, that's a none. So this is to change some of the fee structures related to the installing the water mains and a new water main and service installation. It's a very lengthy ordinance, and that's the bulk of what is occurring here, is to increase all the fees related to that. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Counselor Blair and then Reynolds.
Well, my opinion stands as it was, without the proper public hearing. And I say the public hearing we have on Zoom is not proper as far as I'm concerned. So without giving the people that are affected adequate time to come before the council, I can't substantiate any increases. And I've heard from contractors that myself have been called on it, that some of them are exorbitant. You know, we're comparing ourselves with other towns and other cities, and they're exorbitant. So I can't in good conscience vote for an increase without having a proper public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Reynolds.
So I follow in line with Counselor Blair. I'm very much opposed to this. I've heard from several people, and even again, my own opinion goes along with what I had just said before. This is not the time. If we're going to increase fees, and these fees are in some places really exorbitant, then we have to do it incrementally. We have to give people a chance to understand that they're going to face this amount of increase over the period of like 5 or 10 years, not jump from something that's $495 that's going to jump all the way to like $2,500 or something like that overnight. So I am vehemently opposed to these fees and would be voting no, totally. And that concludes my comments.
Counselor Dolan, did I see your hand? No. Any additional questions or comments?
I wanted to kind of add something.
Oh, Counselor Delissio and then Counselor Holmes.
Yeah, I have to say I'm in full agreement with Council Reynolds and Council Blair. I would like to, in maybe Zoom is still what we're going to be doing this time next year. I don't know that. Excuse me. But I think I would like to see us get a little more sophisticated with the Zoom so we can better help. Because these are important ordinances. So, we really need to get the input of those who might be against or neither for nor against. I think Mr. Caponegro raised some great points when he came here in front of us, but we did hear from a couple different people who tried to get in, and for whatever reason, technical issues on their own or whatever, they weren't able to. So again, this isn't a no per se against what's in front of us. It's a find a way to put a pin in it until we can get all the right information.
Thank you. Counselor Holmes.
Thank you. So during committee, I wanted to kind of let everybody know, Counselor DeSimone had a great suggestion, which I really want to see in the future. We're really going to try to get like an overlay of when there's an ordinance change, because some of these are like 50 pages long of the specific changes that are being made. Because as Counselor Reynolds just mentioned, some of the fees are going from a dollar amount that are, it's quite a, more than 100% doubled. So we really need to understand exactly where the changes are in the ordinance. And I think that that can kind of help us in the future, because you can kind of get lost when you're reading it, and you almost need to have the original ordinance that we're currently using versus the changes. So I'm going to work towards making that a little bit of a user-friendly process in the future, especially when they're coming down from the administration, to help the council as a whole. And even Councilor Kobus had reached out about that, like what are the specific changes? So I just wanted to let everybody know that is something that is going to be in the works in the committee.
Thank you. Councilor Kobus.
So I am supportive of this measure generally, and but one of the things that I would encourage us to do is maybe hold off on this until Councilor Holmes can get a full summary of what all of these fees were before, what they're moving up to, how many of them, how many of these were paid last year, and then also what the cost is to the city for each one of these. Because for me, the biggest thing is if it's costing the city more to perform each of these actions than what we're charging the contractors, that money then gets transferred over to the water ratepayers, and I don't think that's fair. But so as a result of that, I'm supportive of this. But if it doesn't appear to have support, I'd encourage Councilor Holmes to hold off on it and get that summary data so that we can review that further.
Any additional, Councilor Conti?
So, Mr. President, I make a motion that we lay this motion on the table.
Second.
Thank you. Yep. He does need a second. Yes, it does. And I have to get up and get my book unless somebody can remind me if we vote.
We vote.
We do vote.
You go right to a vote, I think.
We go right to the vote.
Yeah,
We go right to the vote.
debated. Yep.
Cannot be debated. That's what I thought. Roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair. And this is to lay the motion on the table. Steve, did we lose you?
Yeah, it looks like he's away from his computer.
I'm here.
Oh,
I
okay.
just went out again, so I'm back now. We
Okay,
doing
so
roll call?
there's a motion to lay this motion on the table made by Councilor Conti, seconded by
Jackson.
Councilor Holmes.
Point
Yep.
of order.
Yes, sir.
President Cooper, can you just clarify the procedure for us? In that if we lay this on the table, my understanding is that this has to be the first item we take up at the next full meeting?
No, sir. No, it does not. Nope.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Different motion.
Perfect.
So Councilor Withers, former Councilor Withers, current city clerk, we are a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair on the motion to lay on the table.
Okay, Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
No.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
No,
Mr. Kobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
President Cooper,
Yes,
9 yeas, 2 nays.
motion passes. Now, wait, Rick, do you have your book, or
I do
Kate? Do I when it's laid on the table, do I refer it to committee?
No, I believe it stays in the committee and then they have to make a motion. The committee makes a
bring it
motion
up.
to bring it, lift it from the table.
That's correct. Yes, sir. All right, perfect. So that, moving right along to the next motion, Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. 1 second, I'm just finding this here. Okay. From the docket of April 21st, 2020, I entertain a motion to approve the proposed ordinance changes to increase fees charged by the wastewater department, section 16-15, building sewers connection and connections as follows.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Counselor Holmes.
Thank you. This is where we did in committee make one adjustment. There was the word 50, but the dollar amount 100. So we did make that adjustment in committee. But again, this is about increasing the fees, fee increases. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Councilor Blair and then Reynolds.
I hope I'm beating Richard to the punch, but I'd like to make a motion. We lay this on the table, same as we did for the water department.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order to lay on the table, made by Councilor Blair, seconded by Councilor Cobus. It's non-debatable, and we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes. Ms. Holmes.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes. Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus. Mr.
Yes.
Cobus.
You're
Hello?
muted.
Yes.
He's muted.
I thought I said yes.
Okay. Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes to lay on the table. Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. Thank you for, I know that that was kind of a lengthy process, but like I said, I think that there's going to be some good things coming out of the committee in terms of understanding the differences of what's being presented and what we currently have. And I'm just looking forward to getting to work on this. That concludes the business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Holmes. Thank you.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to enter committee of the whole.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Roll call vote is required. And we'll begin with Councilor Blair, I think.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus. Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are now in committee of the whole. I see only one additional attendee on the Zoom meeting. Now is the time to address the council. If you have an issue of city business you'd like to bring before the council, now is the time. Hold on one second, just check my, okay. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
Thank you. We'll require a roll call vote, unfortunately, again, beginning with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Okay. Steve, you left.
Steve, you left us again at Conti.
Councilor Conti says yes.
Yes to the dress.
I'm sorry?
Oh.
Did I get Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We have one item of new business this evening, and for that, I'll recognize Council Reynolds.
The new business that I'm bringing out this evening, I had started to bring out before COVID hit, and so I'm bringing it out now again tonight. The motion, I entertain a motion that the following item be referred to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation to review the city ordinances and address the need for section 17-13.0 Water Resources Protection District and to, oh, I'm sorry. I do not have the right one right in front of me. Hang on a second. Sorry. And today, I apologize. I've kept hold of the wrong one the whole night. Bear with me, please.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, here it goes. If I entertain, I'll reread it. Thank you.
Please do.
Thank you for the patience, everybody. I entertain a motion that the following item be referred to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation to review the city ordinances and address any modification needed up to and including the removal of section 17-13.0 Water Resources Protection District.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any additional comments, Councilor Reynolds? And this is just to bring it, to send it to the committee for study and recommendation.
That's right. Would you like me to give a few reasons why I'm bringing this forward, Councilor Cooper?
You can now, or you can do it at the committee. It's
I'll
up to
wait
you.
until it comes out at committee then. That'll be great.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from the council? The motion is in order on Council Reynolds' new business. Seeing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
So let me pick up from there, because I see Steve's frozen again.
Mr. Conti. I'm back now. Mr. Conti.
Mr. Conti said yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. I'm going to assign that matter to the Zoning and Land Use Committee, please. There is no old business. At this time, I'd entertain a roll call vote to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. The roll call vote will begin with Council Holmes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Conti.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 9:36.
Bye, Virginia. You were
Good night, everyone.
9:30, she said.
Night.